dark, but that's okay. You're dark on your side.
Say good morning.
All right, are we there?
You're here.
All right, good morning. And I am live this time with Joseph Antoun. You know, the darn split screen is, you know, it's very iffy. And yesterday, my whole internet was acting up. Dr. Joseph Antoun, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, and thanks for hosting me. And sorry for everyone yesterday. You and I had a lovely discussion, but it seems it was a little bit frozen. But always a pleasure to make time and talk a little bit more about the fasting mimicking diet and help your followers kind of improve their health span and longevity.
Yeah, well, listen, that's what I want to talk about this morning. I mean, we have a lot of people who are doing it for the first time, like myself. You know, we actually did my brother-in-law. Bob, who has done every fast with us and then some, he actually started a day early because he had to, and he testified yesterday that he actually really liked the food, and so that was great news. So he was pleasantly surprised so far. So I'll keep getting you know, these words of, you know, people and their testimonies because we have such a large group fasting. But, you know, what I want you to do today is I want to excite people. I think there's still a lot of people on the fence, and you all can still order the kits. My team will make that. If you want to do the fasting mimicking diet with me, click on the thing. Dr. Joseph, being the CEO of ProLon, actually gave us a discount within our group only, and you can get that discount right here. So thank you for that, Dr. Joseph. Appreciate that. And so anyways, let's excite them about this because there's so much research you all are doing, and you've just received $40 million from the NIH to do even more research, which I wanted you to talk about. But let's just start with the basics. There might be some new people watching. The fasting mimicking diet, let's tell them how powerful it is and why.
Yeah, and thank you for the introduction. This discovery stems from a good 20 years of research, and the main part of the research happened at the University of Southern California, and USC was researching longevity actually to start with and how to keep people healthier longer. That was the big challenge. Instead of medicine was able to prolong our longevity and lifespan, but kept us a little bit sick long. Yeah. And the big dream of every one of us is how can I stay healthy longer? And the Longevity Institute at USC discovered, or actually uncovered, the potential of fasting, in that it wasn't just the scarcity of food, and it's not a negative, starvation phenomenon, but fasting lived with us as humans for 99.9% of our existence on Earth. We were fasting initially because of scarcity of food, and then afterwards, even when food became available, readily available, religions, the top five, or the widely spread 5 religions, agree on one word, which is fasting, and they prolonged it all the way to the last 100 years, where we started to become less religious. Food became cheap. The supply chain of food is, and a lot of marketing to us on food. And then we started eating every day continuously, and not surprisingly, we're aging in an unhealthy way. We're getting diabetes early on in our lifespan. We're getting cancer early on in our lifespan, Alzheimer's, and cardiovascular disease. So we uncovered the fact that fasting wasn't a negative connotation, but actually lived long enough with us that we got used to it from an epigenetic standpoint, from a microbiome standpoint, from even balancing our weight. So you eat, if you keep eating, you're going to stock weight, you're going to stock fat, and then you're going to become insulin resistant and diabetic. And it's such a simple notion, but we haven't kind of paid enough attention to it. So USC kind of uncovered that potential and started playing with different fasting regimens, few hours to a day, to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And the biggest level of discovery was, so the first discovery, fasting is important for our metabolism and weight balance. But the second layer of discovery was when they started understanding how the body defends itself when it's under fasting. The first couple of days of fasting, yes, you break down weight. Yes, you use that as a source of calorie, but the more you advance towards a day 2 or 3 of consecutive fasting, and for those of you who are going to do ProLon, they're going to witness that on day 3, they're going to feel that there's some changes happening in their body. And it's basically the body telling the cells, I cannot sustain you anymore with breaking down the fat. You go look inside, eat the debris calories that you have and optimize your function. So it's the body trying now to become even more effective with the way it treats the calories and optimize its performance. That phenomenon, we call it autophagy, and it happens on day 2 and 3. And then it won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for 2016, which is pretty amazing. And then when you cross day 2 and 3, going to day 4 and 5, even autophagy is not enough. Even cellular improvement of performance is not enough. Then the body takes a drastic action, which is it starts actually getting rid of the cells with DNA damage and the elderly cells. It sees them as dead weight, as inefficient tissue, and pushes the stem cells. Every organ of the body has its own young cells. We know they were there to defend the body against physical damage. So if you go in a car accident, you can regenerate the liver. If you cut your skin, as simple as cutting your skin in a kitchen, it heals itself because the stem cells heal the wound. So we never knew that actually nutritional stress now, not physical stress, could even push the stem cells. So on day 4 and 5, the body, again, to be even more efficient with the way it treats the calorie, because you're fasting, you don't have any income of calories. It pushes the stem cells to replace old cells. And now, for the first time, you have a stem cell-based regeneration in the body. This is the first time in history we describe such a phenomenon. And actually, just this past July, a month and a half ago, we received the very first patent issued in history on organ and tissue regeneration and to promote longevity and health span. So it's the first ever in history a patent issued on longevity with tissue regeneration on a product. 5 days of fast on water is a little bit difficult. Carries some risk of hypoglycemia or loss or lack in minerals, and some stones that could happen from gallbladder nut squeezing for 5 days. This is why actually at USC we thought about developing the fasting mimicking diet, which is a very complicated set of ingredients that actually would nourish the body, would help you go through 5 days of fast, would help you lose the weight, improve a lot of metabolic metrics, and at the same time regenerate your cells and go through autophagy, but not actually having the body sense the food. And that's a very tricky equation. 66 ingredients, you're going to taste them. We worked for 10 years, a lot of investments, as you said, the NIH and the European governments put actually close to $46 million in our research. We actually put more capital into product development, and we have a very fascinating, what we call fascinating diet that helps you go safely through 5 days to regenerate the body and hopefully stay healthier longer.
And let's talk about that, because I've taught even for years a partial fast, which I learned through experience that some people did better with small amounts of food, between 500 and 1,000 calories, then they would get more benefit than even a pure water fast, right? So in no doubt it was easier for people starting the fast. So talk about that, because many people here are efficient water fasters, but again, why this, by eating a little bit of food, it may be better for them. Talk a little bit about that.
And first, just at the philosophy level, if you're used to water fasting or you can do it, try to do it and stick with it. But what we are offering is a preclinically and clinically tested regimen that has gone into a lot of scientific studies, both in the labs and in humans, to try in 5 days to really mimic fast. But not only that, in the fasting mimicking diet, before I joined as a CEO, used to be called fasting mimicking and enhancing diet. And this is what Dr. Pompa you're alluding about, which is if you fast just on water or you deprive the body, even some parts of the correction of the cells and even the stem cell push actually afterwards, if you don't have minimal levels of macronutrients and some micronutrients that the simple operation of the body requires, you're actually not boosting the effects of fasting. So what we do with ProLon, our fasting mimicking diet, is two level of addition on top of fasting. Is number one, we get the body faster to in an environment of fasting. So we push the body faster into getting into fasting, and this is through appropriate formulation. But also we provide enough macro and micronutrients for the body to still operate and feed the cells, and then actually get them up and replicating. And this is why we stop actually also at day 5, because refeeding, going back to your food on day 6 onwards, is very important to get enough protein and carbohydrates for the stem cells to keep flourishing.
Right. Yeah, and again, I had said, for years, we've utilized partial fasting as a tool that we realized some people actually do better with, and we couldn't live without it. But I want to distinguish between what we've done in the past and the fasting mimicking diet, and why I'm excited to join up with you all, because you alluded to it slightly. You said, a lot of this time and money we've put into specifically dialing in the ratios of the macronutrients, the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates, and the balance of these foods. So this isn't just, 500 to 800 calories randomly thrown in a box. I mean, you all studied this specifically to be like, okay, this is the perfect ratios and you have reasons why. So talk a little bit about that, because there's many people who are saying, well, I'll just do a partial fast, but there's a lot of reasons why eating from the ProLon is way better.
Yeah. And bless you as pioneers thinking about the partial fast and thinking about helping people to go through the fast. What we did is we a little bit optimized that and found what is the optimal proportions of ingredients that should go there. So when you do a partial fast, say from 0 to 500 calories, which is what if you want the previous generation of fasters have been doing, is instead of going on pure water, let me eat something during the day. And because there was no science on what to eat, the limitation was eat something below 0 and 500 calories. And there's a lot of, the 5-2 dieters that do this. They on two days during the week, they try to eat, the males below 600 calories and female below 500 calories. Now, there are a couple of tricks there, is that you're trying to eat very low to mimic fasting. It doesn't mean necessarily that you're mimicking fasting. It just takes, a very small piece of steak, for example, if you eat that and it's a couple of hundred calories, it has enough protein to trigger the cellular recognition of proteins and what we call the mTOR pathway.
Yeah.
So the IGF mTOR pathway. So the cell recognizes the protein, and then basically you're eating a very low calorie diet, but you're not mimicking fasting to a perfect extent.
So basically, doing that, you would stop the autophagy and therefore the stem cell production.
Yeah, because you're depriving now the body with very low calorie, but the cells are feeling these low calories, and this is why you don't get the cellular the cellular effects that we see with the fasting mimicking diet. Autophagy, and more importantly on day 4 and 5, is the stem cell regeneration, because we beyond ProLon, this is separate from ProLon. We're now engaged in 24 human trials, and a lot of those are on diseases. So we actually are uncovering a big power of the fasting mimicking diet to intercept and prevent, intercept, and maybe actually reverse the course of some diseases. This is not for ProLon, this is still in research, but there's a lot of stem cell-based regeneration that we're seeing that could potentially reverse the course of the disease. So it's an extra layer of identifying what really could mimic fasting, enhance fasting, empower the stem cell, and lead the optimal and safe effective fasting.
And I want you to expand on that, because there was a study that you all did on mice, and you basically did which equivalated to 5 days a month of fasting mimicking diet for 5 months, I believe. And what was noted, I'll let you tell the results, but basically the pancreatic cells that make insulin, so therefore mimicking a type 1 diabetic, actually regenerated. But tell them that, because this is the power of this in their body.
Yeah, and this was a landmark study that we did. We basically said, okay, if the body through the stress of fasting can regenerate stem cells, can the body use these cells to reverse the course of a disease? And then we went, and obviously the biggest disease we're suffering from today is diabetes globally. And we went in mice and we tried to see how the pancreas regenerate, if first the pancreas would regenerate under a stress there. And this helped us understand, like, again, I always use the example of cutting, a wound cut, right?
Yeah.
Cut wound. And that regenerates alone because the body sees that as a damage.
Right.
And now as the pancreas of a diabetic person is a damaged pancreas, especially when the cells fail to produce the insulin and you become what we call insulin dependent, or you have a failure in the number of beta cells and the function you have in the pancreas. So what we did in mice, we actually used a toxic substance called STZ that kills the beta cells of the pancreas, and the mice became diabetic. And then when we did cycles of the fasting mimicking diet, in mice actually we used 3 days, which is the equivalent of 5 days in humans, and we did several cycles in a row. And what we saw is that every time the stem cells were specializing in beta cells. So they were trying to heal a wound, basically, specializing in beta cells, secreting insulin, and the mice that did the fasting mimicking diet had their glycemia back to normal. And this is the first time in the history of medicine that we're showing a potential reversal, cellular reversal, not the insulin resistant part of diabetes, but a cellular reversal of diabetes. We're very excited that to announce that soon we're going to go into clinical trials on diabetes. So I don't recommend today, we're not positioning ProLon for that, but we're doing the fasting mimicking diet formulation on diabetes. And if indeed in humans, it will also help the beta cell regeneration. I think we're out for something really revolutionary in medicine. And I want to mention that in 2016, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office issued for us the full issuance of a patent on treating diabetes. So we have 6 patents already issued out of 21 patents we filed, and we're really excited about the diabetes patent, about the longevity patent, and we have 3 patents on cancer. Another extremely interesting research field that we're looking at, and we're hoping to publish something very big end of this year on cancer.
You know, by the way, when you look at the studies on living longer, healthy, you know, there's only one thing that holds up, and that's eating less. But, you know, that eating less by eating less often is a term that I like to coin. You know, but the fasting mimicking diet is basically doing just that. You know, talk about that, though, because Walter Longo is, you know, the scientist, the Italian scientist behind a lot of this. You know, you and him together have really, you know, made a lot of this happen. So credit to both of you for sure. But, you know, his predecessor was part of the Biosphere 2 project, which it was 30% caloric restriction for 2 years. It failed. I'll let you tell the story, but it led to this is really what works.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story of how we came about discovering the power of fasting and the stem cell layer of it. You started your question saying that eating less is important. I fully agree with not overeating and probably not undereating. And this study, the Biosphere study, which I'll explain a little bit, showed that you should not also undereat on the long term.
Absolutely.
And but the extra layer that fasting added to this is beyond the metabolics of eating more or less or being overweight or underweight and then improve the metabolic markers. There's a layer of cellular healing and regeneration which only fasting has been able to demonstrate. There's nothing today we know in medicine or healthcare that can push the body's own stem cell, except actually trauma, physical trauma.
Yeah.
And the stress of fasting is actually doing that, and that stem cell regeneration, I think, is going to carry a lot of power in medicine. We're so excited about that. But to answer your question about undereating now, the Biosphere project, which was led by Roy Walford, was, like you said, they secluded people for month and month and month, and they fed them 30% less calories per day. And it was a chronic calorie restriction study to see what happens in human if we eat less per day. The mice results were positive, the monkey results were negative, and we didn't know at that time in humans what would the result be. So these people the individuals participating in the trial came out of it. Of course, they were skinny. They had, they were underweight or normal weight. They had good metabolic markers. On the other side, they had lost some lean body mass, bone density. Their immunity was depressed, and actually they were depressed even mood-wise. So the conclusion was, it's not really recommended to do a low-calorie diet on the long term.
Right.
And at that time, our founder or the discoverer and inventor of of the fasting diet, the fasting mimicking diet, his name is Professor Walter Longo, and he is the author of the longevity diet and the head of the Longevity Institute at USC. He was a postdoc at that time, and he was interestingly looking at the MRIs and the organs of the individuals coming out of the chronic calorie restriction trial. And he sees that their organ coming right out of the trial were smaller than the average adult organ size. But then when refed, in a few days, the organs went back to almost normal size. And he was amazed how at an adult age, and the organs of the body can regenerate fast. And a mature cell doesn't replicate that fast. And this is where he had the assumption that the stem cells of their organs are actually driving that cellular replication. So he went back to the labs, knowing that if you go on a 30% calorie restriction long term, you might lose muscle and bone,
right,
and impacts the mood. He said, why I don't go on a more acute intervention, a severe intervention, which is pure fasting, and let me see how many days of fast we need to go through in order to stress the body enough to push the stem cells, but because we're doing it on an acute level, it doesn't lead to these long-term side effects.
Right.
To our surprise, it was 3 days in mice and 5 days in humans that could lead to the stem cell regeneration. But to our big surprise, the stem cell now regenerated, which you don't get with the chronic calorie restriction. The chronic calorie restriction depresses the body.
Yeah.
Stem cell regeneration that happens on the short term is not only protecting lean body mass, but actually with refeeding, if you want to build more lean body mass, and if you go on a little bit higher protein diet after that, we're seeing a lot of today athletes, a lot of people interested in that, building up, not only protecting, but building up their lean body mass. So it depends on what you do on the refeeding as well. You have a lot of potential with how you can direct the stem cells.
Well, that's one of the things that I'm going to be doing. So day 5, when my growth hormone's super high, my stem cells are super high, I'm actually going to work out on that day. So I most likely will not be working out through the fast, but on day 5 I will. And then I'm going to go higher protein and after the fast, because that stimulates that mTOR pathway, which is going to stimulate even more stem cell activity. Because I'm a believer that the power is autophagy. Like you said, don't eat less too long. That's not good either. Don't fast too much. That's not good either. And don't stay in high protein too long. That would stimulate mTOR too long, which would age you faster. But periodic times of that is something I call feast, famine cycling, diet variation. And it works.
This is how we mimic nature.
We're mimicking nature.
We were not eating all the time. The body was used to go through, 2-3 fasts a year, either because we were migrating, our ancestors were migrating, or famine period, or winter time. And the body used to cope with this. It just, we lost this counterbalance. Today we eat all the time, and it's not healthy anymore.
No, I agree. I mean, I think everybody fasting a couple times a year, we no doubt turn back the clock, the cellular clock. And our bodies are designed for this. I think we're meant to fast. I think everybody should fast. I just think the fasting mimicking diet just brings a whole nother twist to it. I mean, we are just emulating what our ancestors were forced to do, right? I mean, there was times where they were able to eat just very little amounts of food. Their DNA responded in this autophagy and stem cells. And by the way, he talked about the mice. One of the cool things in the testimonies we get is people say, well, gosh, I injured my back or my hip years ago and now I feel it there. That's this autophagy stem cells healing that area. So you'll feel an organ. I felt my kidneys at one point that, I stressed years ago with heavy metal toxicity. You'll feel these areas healing. That's the cool part of what you're saying. These stem cells heal organs. These stem cells heal body parts. It's remarkable when you rely on the innate intelligence in this fasting. It really is.
And I fully agree. The efficacy that we see, the health benefits are superior to any other benefits we witness with different diets or different even pills or approaches. And there's a place for every diet. I think what we decided, and this is the biggest credibility, goes to Professor Walter Longo and USC, who decided not to jump in the market on a fast idea or on an unproven concept. They actually spent a good 20 years researching aging, researching how the body processes foods, how the cells get the signals of food, how to fast the body, and then how to mimic fasting with food. And the fasting mimicking diet is a 66 ingredients diet. A lot of people think that, hey, I'll go and I'll buy my tomato soup, I'll go and buy this and that. I think it's a very fine line of ingredients to nourish the body and keep it in a fasting mode, and to uncover the stem cell potential of it, and then to go and do preclinical and clinical trials and patent those and then go to the market. So a long 22 years journey, but I think the entire field of functional medicine, the entire field of nutrition needs the credibility that the pharma and the biotech brought to the market to convince the doctors and the consumers that this is credible, this is safe. We took that route. We spent a good, 22 years, over $46 million. That was only grants, actually. There's a lot of capital raised behind that. And I think what the big response of the doctors and the consumers behind the fasting mimicking diet is, on one side, it's efficacious, it works. On the other side, it is safe, it is proven, there's a lot of evidence behind it. Today, over 80,000 patients and consumers have done the fasting mimicking diet. We're actually registering close to 120 clinics a week today. We just crossed 5,500 clinics offering ProLon, and we're really excited about this this journey. One thing I want to add is the revenues we're getting from that are really vested. A lot of them are vested in the science and in the current 24 trials we do. On top of that, our founder, Professor Longo, who has 60% shares in the company as a founder, donates all of it, 100% of it, back to the Create Cures Foundation.
That's amazing.
Which then does donations and charitable offering. And we're really excited about not only changing the world from a health outcomes perspective, but giving back the most of it into other projects that have other impacts on society.
Fasting for a purpose.
Yeah, fasting for a purpose. There you go. We're fasting for a purpose, and there's another purpose. So the money that you buy with that 5 days of food, 60% of that, right? It goes to that, which is fantastic. So that's awesome. And honestly, I think when you look at what's gone into the food, it's more than worth it. The convenience, the science behind that specific ratio. I'm blessed to be teaming up with you. He's speaking at my seminar November 2nd through the 4th. So I'm always trying to get practitioners to get to the seminar because you need to know this research. You need to know it. November, it's Las Vegas, 2nd through the 4th. There's always a link here, practitioners, to get there. You're going to be there speaking, showing the science on this. I mean, we're a growing group of doctors. We've been backing fasting. I've been teaching on this stuff for years. I think we are at the most exciting time right now. You're going to be bringing an amazing message. So,
I look forward for that event. Again, I'm going to go and talk about the science. I'm going to present the fasting mimicking diet research we're doing on different chronic diseases. Is going to be amazing. We have a lot of new and exciting discoveries. Today I'm actually speaking to you from Dallas. I'm at an event in here with 860 doctors. Very exciting for us. I look forward to teaming up with you on that event, and we're also excited that you're part of our journey, Dan. You're one of the pioneers that started talking about fasting before most of us, and we're today happy to bring the science, bring an effective way, a way that you and us and everyone else can disseminate it at the mass level in a safe and efficacious way. And this is the fasting mimicking diet and ProLon for promoting longevity.
Dr. Antoun, you're a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for taking your time out of your seminar and being here with our group. And thank you for the discount that you've blessed us with. And we're blessed to be part of it with you. So, folks, you're awesome. And listen, it's not too late. Just start the fast late if you want to do the fasting mimicking diet. I showed that little box of food that I'm going to be eating every day for 5 days. Seems easier than just water. But anyways, there's a link provided here to get the discount if you want to do the fasting mimicking diet with us. Start late. And by the way, even if you just start with the water fast, if that was your intention, and then you want to switch over, I'll tell you, there's magic in that as too. You can also go from to the water to the fasting mimicking diet. Many of you might want to choose that. So I didn't even think of that. I should have told them that because many people missed ordering the food and they think it was too late, but it's not too late. If it takes 3 days or whatever it takes to get the box of food into next week, if you want to start the fast tomorrow, because tomorrow actually, Dr. Joseph, we're starting the fast, start the fast. And when your box of food comes, switch over to the fasting mimicking diet. That's an option. I didn't think about that until right now. There you go. Thanks, Doc. Appreciate it.
Okay. Yep. Take care. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.